Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kimberly, and I am the Program Information Specialist at Ohio University for the Online Graduate Programs. And today we are joined by the wonderful Dr. Amy Taylor-Bianco, and we are going to be chatting about leading and managing virtual teams. Just some housekeeping notes for you. We do have a question and answer box, so feel free to pop your questions in there and we'll get to them as we see fit, as the conversation is going on, or if you have questions at the end, we can also take those as well. But we're going to do a lot of great content, and then we'll talk a little bit more about our program. So with that being said, Dr. B, do you want to go ahead and start to introduce yourself?
All right. Yes, I would love to. Thank you, Kimberly. It's always a pleasure to get to work with Kimberly and to talk about our programs here at Ohio University, and also just to talk about leading and managing virtual teams. It's something that we've, I think, all had to think a lot about. I know it's certainly something that I've been thinking a lot about with my background in leadership and management. And I actually have a background in organizational change and have helped organizations work through change. And we always say that change is constant. But I realized that actually it wasn't always as constant as it is now. Change is happening so quickly now. So many things are changing and so quickly that some of our old stuff works, and we need to figure out some new things too. So I'm excited to talk with you about some of those things today. All right. So
thank you. So I know that when we were talking about this, both you and I are actually working remotely, right? Ever since the coronavirus pandemic, I went remote in about March, and it was such a transition to go from like that office life where we're seeing people day to day, being able to collaborate, to working fully remote, and it was so weird for us. How was it for you?
Yeah, it's such a strange thing because as professors, we are in and out of the office a lot, so I did work from home, but I could always be in the office, and something about not being able to be there made working from home different, making that the home base. So I can see why it's about 50-50. Like half the people respond in this one survey that we looked at anyhow, half the people respond that they'd like to work permanently remotely, and the other half are like, no, I don't think so. So I don't know, Kim, I found that first I gained time. I didn't have a commute, I didn't have all these other things to do. And then now I'm not sure if I gain time or I'm just able to get more done. I'm not really sure if I'm accounting for my time quite as clearly as I was. How about you?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Like at first, that novelty of like, ooh, I can set my own schedule. I can go grab a snack whenever I want to. I can walk my dog when I'm on the clock, so to speak. But as it's gone on, I'm kind of like 50-50 as well. I feel that I'm working more hours now, and I also feel like it's hard to turn off and also feel like you have that work-life balance, because it's just either all work or all life in the same space, and that I think is a little bit hard. On the third bullet here, I thought that was interesting that it resonated with me. It's like some benefits of remote work include higher employee satisfaction and longer tenure, but I wonder if that's still true. That looks like that survey was in 2019. I'd be interested to know if that's still true.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I was just looking at another survey when we were kind of preparing to talk. I was looking at another survey on digital leadership, and they said that 79% of employees are feeling overworked right now, or some need for some kind of break or some kind of, downtime. And what I find kind of interesting about that is it's all up to us now. We may be even doing that to ourselves. I know I'm doing it to myself Somebody's not making me work more, I'm making me work more. So how do we figure out that balance, right? And is there a benefit of higher tenure and better work-life balance? Less stress. I think it's really hard to say as well because, hitting COVID, we're not just working remotely, but we're working in this in this time of uncertainty. So organizations are having to adapt, but the whole world is adapting. We're going through, global adaptation. So it's a huge time of uncertainty. And perhaps if other things were stable, maybe we wouldn't be working from home, but also working from home might be different. So, so it's interesting, this, rise of the remote workforce. And I think it's really interesting that 75% said that they'd like to continue working from home. So let's look a little bit at some of the challenges of managing a remote workforce. And I think you could think about this, folks, as yourselves, as individuals working. You can think about it if you have a team below you or a team above you. Maybe you have both. Maybe you have a team beside you. I don't know. But just managing in this time. So we've got that lack of visual cues and kind of visual supervision. Like nobody knows what time I show up in the office. I guess I know what time my students were talking. I guess you know what time your Teams or whatever Zoom light goes on, right? But nobody knows what time you go in or leave. It's all about the goals and getting the work done, which we always kind of said it was, but there were these other informal cues as well. And so we don't have the same visual cues. And we do have some visual cues, but they're just different ones than we had. And then there's a lot, definitely fewer opportunities for just quick training and knowledge sharing. Like, hey Kim, how do you do this? How do you do that? Like I have to set up a call with her, make sure it's the time she can talk and so forth. So that informal training isn't happening as much. At the same time, a lot more people, working professionals and people who are taking a break right now, a lot more people are going back to school and seeing this as a great time to learn and further their education. And I think even part of that could be because there's different needs in the workforce, but part of it could also be that we're not getting that informal learning that we want so much. I'm sure we're learning a lot about technology and other things, but not getting that informal knowledge sharing. So our traditional communication and collaboration and networking has changed. And I don't have all the answers. I have some answers, and I'm looking for plenty more on how to do these things. We know we have increased electronic communication, right? And we know and we knew going into this, because it's an area I say that communication skills would be paramount, both written and oral. But I don't think we could actually visualize how important those skills would be. So we've got electronic communication, so we don't have that context or tone. And I'm somebody who likes to read tone and likes to read context, so that's pretty hard for me. Some people may not find that as hard, but I do. And then social isolation and less team bonding. Days can go by where you don't see anyone. Even people who are in the office, many of our master's students are in the office, but they're working on shifts where they're seeing, for example, one of our students, manages a lab. So she has certain shifts, so there's only one other person there at the time that she's there. So there are other people, but it's still very isolating. And so there's fewer team bonding activities and so forth. And then I don't know about you, but I have some distractions at home. Everybody's got different things going on. And some of it I love, the distractions at home, and some of it makes it hard to get things done. There's definitely, less of a boundary between work and home life. And in my earlier days in my professional career, I studied what used to be called at that time work-family conflict or work-life balance. And one of the things that I'll say is still true is it all goes better if we perceive that we have supervisor and organizational support. So maybe these times are making us be a little bit better at articulating, as leaders, articulating the support that we have for our employees, for the people that we work with. Hey, if you need to take time at this time, go for it. I know you're going to get the job done, that kind of thing. So there are a lot of challenges of working remotely. I've heard people say, well, how do I know that they're working? How do I know that they're getting it done? And I kind of want to say sometimes, do you need to know that they're working, or do you need to know that the work is done? Because those are two different things, right? So we need the outcomes, but we have a lot less control and maybe need less control over how people reach those outcomes. So it's certainly something to consider. So it's also interesting to consider because everybody's not on, electronics all the time. I feel like I'm on electronics all the time, but not everybody has internet all the time. Some people are on, some people aren't. So we need to allow people to work in the ways that are best for them at this time. And that can be kind of tricky. And it all comes back, though, to the same step. We have to know our employees. We have to know our teams. We have to know who we work with and what matters to them, what their goals are, and what makes them tick. We know that our work is, paramount. It's of utmost importance to them. But what else? Let's kind of be real. And what else matters to them? What else? What in their lives matter to them? How does our work, matter to them? Does it help them reach certain goals or not? What does it do so that we can be, a little stronger in articulating that value? I think that that's really important because there are different types of leadership that we need to use. So if I move forward here, let me, okay, push that one out. Okay, challenges. All right, so if we go now to our deep dive into management and leadership. So if we get into that deep dive, the first thing, right, is we have to level the digital playing field. So how many of you spent a lot of time upskilling? I know for those of us who are older, and I think I can safely say that I'm older than Kim, and she's probably better at this than I am. For those of us that are older, it took me a while, right? Probably a week of immersive study to learn some of the things I've been meaning to learn, right, that I needed to know, but to learn some of those things. And I can say that age was part of it, but then I look at, my daughter who's going back to school, who's a teenager, right, who's going back to school online, and she had to learn some things too. So it's not even always age, it's just there are new platforms, new technologies out there. And so the first thing is that we just have to, level that digital playing field. So once we get there, then there's a lot we can do. But that digital piece, I think, is really important, and sort of how we do that. So providing training, right, that makes the workforce just sort of ready, and puts the spotlight on people's digital readiness, and also organizations making decisions about what platforms and what technologies they're going to use. I know I have one platform I use more for work, one I use more for family stuff, but that's sort of dictated by, hopefully by work and then family at the same time. So, okay, so level that playing field. Boom, as if it were so easy. Level that playing field. And then once we do that, we're dealing with the same stuff. It's still, how do we find our stability amid tremendous change? So a lot of you may not think about, or maybe you do, that the world is changing all the time. There is so much change happening all the time. It's just not something that is normally in our face, it's not something we're normally tuned into because it can be overwhelming. And the truth is that human beings are actually really good at change. We're really good at adaptation. But psychologically speaking, the psychological principle that we need is we need some things to remain the same. So if I know that some things are going to remain the same, I can do a lot to change. So that makes me think as a manager and as a leader, I need to communicate what's going to stay the same. Are we going to have the same goals? Maybe we had 5 goals. Maybe 2 of them are going to stay the same. Are we going to be working with the same people? Maybe that's going to stay the same. Maybe not. I mean, there's a lot of these things that we thought of as constants are not always constant anymore. But let's find the ones that are, and let's hold on to those. So really focus on that stability amid change. And you know, when you're talking to your employees, when you're talking to those you work with, ask about something every time that's going to be the same. You know, how's, I think Kim and I were talking before this, you know, how's that pet doing? How's, you know, whatever it is, you know, maybe a partner, a spouse, you know, something. How's, you know, I know you love plants, you know, how is gardening going or something like that. But just something that, you know, kind of is pretty much the same day in and day out. And I know a lot of people have dealt with change for other reasons in their personal lives, and you know, a lot of the advice is around keep it within a 24-hour period. So what's going to change today, and then tomorrow I'll deal with what's going to change tomorrow. But let me just focus on one day. And I know people say that one day at a time, and it's kind of an overused slogan, but literally 24 hours. What can we do in those 24 hours? And, you know, how can we work toward our goals, and what strategies are we going to use? So one of the things, so there's a couple of theories, and I can't help but do this. There's a couple leadership theories that I think are really, really helpful. And some of it focuses on the fact that we're, you know, pretty much in the same place. So Barry Posner talked about a great article that he wrote was, why would someone want to be led by you? So why would someone want to be led by you? And then I think, why would they want to be led by you, by me, in person? Well, why would they want to be led by me online? What am I conveying online? So I put myself in the other's point of view and think, you know, why would they want to be led by me? So I think some of those basic constants are the same thing. So, you know, focusing on those positive skills, that can-do-it attitude, that perseverance and absolute clarity on a goal. And then communicating trust and caring. So just because we're digital doesn't mean we can't communicate that trust and caring. So learning some of these skills can lead to these long-term positive results. So one thing there, to move to my next point, is clarity on line of sight. So do I know today what I'm doing affects somebody else? Do I know that I'm helping the organization reach its goals? So these are the same theories. If a leader wants to help me reach, you know, my goals, they can go about it different ways. They can go in a really directive way. And I don't know, personally, I think directive can be a bit helpful in these times. I'm not usually a fan of major directive leadership, but I think it could be really helpful right now when a lot of other things are competing for our time and our energy. You know, there's directive leadership, there's supportive leadership. There's a whole bunch of different types of leadership. But if we look at these different theories, and if we really look back to past goal theory of leadership, which says essentially that people will put in the effort to be able to do a good job if they know what the outcomes will be. So if they know that doing a good job means this or that or the other thing. And to get people to put in the effort, I need to reach different people different ways. So I've got to rely on different approaches. So we can get into that a little bit more if you want. We can see if there are questions or based on time, but we can get into that a little bit more into some of the path goal theory. But what I would say right now is all of the different path goal aspects, all of the different forms of leadership need to be coupled with supportive leadership. And supportive leadership is one of the strategies, but I think right now in particular, it's a strategy that we need to employ with the other strategies. So
would you say is that because we're in a digital landscape now, or do these strategies kind of stay the same depending upon where we are?
Thank you. Yes, because we're in a digital landscape. So leaders always need to be supportive, and maybe there are ways that we do that. Maybe it's just a smile at your coworker, the people working for you. But because we're in this landscape, we need to show our support. So, make work more pleasant by just showing some concern and support for, the people around me. And that can be done, everybody, but particularly as a leader. So that's absolutely more related to these times. So that's a really good question.
I know that in when we're used to go into the office, one way people would show support would be like, here's a pizza party. Thank you so much. And I think that those days are gone now. Not only, even if we were back in the office, there's not as much, group activity and things like that. So I think it's a huge challenge for leaders to find ways to recognize their teams and show that support without, with essentially being one hand tied behind their back, with not being able to have the budget to hold a large pizza party, and then there not being a real want to be in a large group of people nowadays. So that's really interesting.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And when we try to mimic, the virtual social hour, that kind of thing, but we're not really bringing anything but ourselves. But some of the research I'm looking at finds that the leader just setting that up, and some people like more of a social hour or more of like a working lunch, but the leader just setting that up, we used to think it was providing the pizza, right? But do people really go for the pizza? I don't know. But the leader just showing up to have that downtime with employees, that's a real way to show our support, because we're so goal driven. But taking that time out with our employees, is still really important. And I guess we have to show it in different ways. There's a whole bunch of, that's a whole other thought of things in different ways. And I've been asking my students, different ways that they've either shown support or been supported. And it's really, really interesting. It's, your leader calling you out of the blue to tell you something that you did well. That's such an easy thing to do, right? Such an absolutely easy thing to do, but something that I know that I wasn't doing much of. And so that was really helpful for me to look at. And then just having people's back and kind of telling them that you have their back, right? We build trust by taking care of each other. And so that kind of supportive trust building is really important. So of course there's, some of the other strategies, right, are directive strategy, tell people what's expected of them and how to do it. I think now I want to be told what's expected of me. I don't know if I want to be told how to do it. I want to be given opportunities to figure out how to do it. But I think a lot of us are looking for more autonomy with how we do it. And then there's participative leadership. So we're even like a little off on that lately. I don't know what you're seeing, Kim. But I'm seeing like how does a leader get the participation of the people they work with without like having a meeting to get people's participation when a decision's already made? How do you how do you bring people together for 10 minutes? You know, like, I'm not sure on that one.
Yeah, it is such a different time now. That's so interesting.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
So how do you think we can overcome all of these issues? Like, I know we talked about building trust, and maybe it's just me, but I have actually a hard time building trust with someone I can't see. I know that might be small-minded and you know, a little paranoid, but you know, in these times, it can be hard to build trust, even though I've worked with someone. Yeah. Yeah, I've worked with these people for years. Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. So how do we do that? Do you mind if I move on to the next slide and then?
Yeah, please do. I think that one of the things, please do. I think that one of the things with trust is that trust is really built on, you know, any kind of trust, like now or before, is built on reciprocity. So it's really built on that kind of do me a favor, like that you know that someone thought of you and cared about you. And what I think we're finding is that everybody's feeling a little less certain in these times right now. So even the people that you knew cared about you and that you knew you trusted, you have to kind of dip back in, you know, put a few pennies in that jar or whatever, show people that you still trust them and you still care about them. So I don't know, that trust, it's interesting because my son used to say to me when he was little, he used to say, let's play do me a favor. And I was like, what? And I said, but, you know, and he basically wanted something, so he wanted me to do something. And I was like, but that's not what we do. That's not, but he actually had broken down human behavior. It is how trust is built. Like, I do something for you, you do something for me. But so maybe to think every day, is there somebody I can do something for? Something little, but is there somebody I can do something for? Okay, so as we move on, and then, and that's part of self-management. So we don't have that structure of the workday anymore. So we've got to manage ourselves and figure out how to do that and how to build resilience and how to build those tools that we need to develop trust, to keep on our employees' radar, to keep on our managers' radar, and so forth. So there's so much where we can go back into management and leadership theory. But let's kind of move over to looking at some of these actual things that we can do with remote work issues. So on the manager side. So on the manager side, there's that presence and persistence. So I need to know that I'm going to speak with my manager, that my manager is going to be online, you know, at certain times. Like there has to be some consistency, and there has to be a little bit more persistence. So I have to, especially as an introvert, this is hard for me, but I have to go out of my way, right, as a manager and be a little more persistent in checking in on my employees, not on their work, but on them. And then I've got to set boundaries, and even boundaries for myself. Like maybe, you know, I have to set the healthy boundaries I want them to set, like, you know, I'm not available past a certain hour at night. Now, of course, I am if you really need me, but to set those boundaries so that my employees feel safe setting those boundaries, but then to demonstrate that I'm flexible around certain things. I also need to be really clear with my my teams what their goals are. Make sure that we, you know, set them together if possible. If not, set them for them. But what are those goals? How is what you're doing today reaching your goals? So a lot of people do this, you know, they have meetings on, you know, every day, like, okay, what are you working on? What are the barriers to it? And the manager's job, right, is to remove barriers. So what are the barriers to it? So everybody says something they're working on, and then if they have a barrier, they say it. If not, it's assumed that they can do that. And that can take like 15 minutes. So that's one way to check in on those work-related things. And then there's, you know, other ways to check in, to have, you know, the water cooler time or the hallway time, you know, at the end of the day. And again, it can be just, it doesn't even have to be at the end of the day, but it can be 10 to 15 minutes. So to share openly, listen fully, just be there to listen to people, whatever they have to say. and set some communication norms and, with these types of strategies. And most of all, know your employees and figure out other ways to get to know them. Ask them what's most important to you, what's not, and show them that their work is meaningful and worthwhile. So whether it's, sending something, even sending them like an old-fashioned note, right? I don't know, I have someone from my old work days that I'm actually writing letters with right now, writing cards back and forth. And that is much more meaningful to me than an email that says, oh, you did a good job. Getting that card is, really takes nothing, but is very meaningful. So those are some of the things on how managers can overcome remote working issues. And I don't know, Kim, do you have anything else that you wanted to add there before we move to the employee side?
I think you really, really touched on it. And it sounds like it's really that human connection that managers it can be very easy, right, to get into this like routine, like everyone signs online, we say hello in the group chat, and we talk about our weekend in the group chat, but you really do miss that like lack of, that human touch. And that's really, I think it's what is important. It makes a difference between good leaders and great leaders. I also I'm a little bit wary. I guess I sound like a paranoid employee of like someone who's constantly checking in on me. I think there has to be a fine balance. But maybe that goes back to that open communication again, like asking the employee, like, how often do you want me to check in on you? Should we have a one-on-one every week, or do you want it bi-weekly? Just, keeping that person's preference in mind alongside with, getting to know them and taking down those barriers. So that's really, really
great. Yeah.
And look, not a single pizza party was mentioned.
That's awesome. Oh, I love it. Not a single pizza party. I love it. And you're so right, like figuring out how each employee wants it. Like I'm probably someone who doesn't need a lot of communication, but a little bit every once in a while. You're doing a good job. Oh, okay, thanks. I'll keep working harder. So, whatever it is, I think those are great, great, great points. And then on the employee side, and of course this is true for any manager as well, but on the employee side, that workday planning and reflection. So I know years ago when I started, my first job was at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I started, and I remember it was such a big deal that I got what was called the Franklin Planner, which was a whole, they still, Franklin Covey it is now, right? They still have a whole planning and organizing system to work on your tasks and get things done, but planning the night before, what I'm going to do the next day, figuring out how I'm going to monitor that, reflecting on it. Those are really important as employees and honestly in these times as human beings. So I've actually just started tracking how much time I'm spending on other things too, so that I can know that I like put my time in or accomplish something, even the little accomplishments. Just that planning and reflection. And then assume your supervisor supports you and give them opportunities to demonstrate that support. I think managers are so concerned now about meeting objectives and how to do it, and there's so many different things going on that employees might feel a lack of support when they're actually, it's just that they're doing a really good job and so their supervisor isn't worried about them. So seek out that supervisor support if you need it. I'm not saying like go to them all the time. How am I doing? How am I doing? That's kind of like the dog that keeps, coming back to be praised. Not that, but just, reaching out in some way, to ask how you're doing and what you could do to make their job easier. That's always a good one. Communicate early and often. So really following rules and procedures probably more than ever. I'm not a rules and procedures person, but I realize how critical they are. And then communicating early if I run into barriers or issues, and communicating often. Like, hey, this is under control, working on this, here's where I am. and creating a professional work environment at home or wherever you are. I know a lot of people are going back and forth. I've been working with my setup a bunch of times. Kim, I noticed you have a nice setup there. You have a pretty consistent setup at home, which looks nice. So figure out what that work environment is, set it up for yourself. Maybe a few different environments. I'm someone who likes to move around, so I just need a few different spaces I can be in. Assume the best of not only your supervisor, but of the other employees around you. Part of being a good employee is assuming the best, but, planning for, obviously, being aware of the worst, but planning for the best. And balance, that work-life balance, that everything balance wins. Take a lunchtime if you can. I'm someone who never really stopped for lunch. Take a lunchtime, find that balance, right? It's about, managing your energy, not your time. Is, sort of a well-known book on the topic, but figuring out that balance, what gives you energy. Find a hobby that you love. Find something else that you love doing that helps you create balance. And then my favorite one is get a pet. When I talked to my students, I could not believe how many people had gotten, they were calling them COVID pets, a lot more cats than I had seen before. And it's kind of cool because you can actually see people's pets, they could tell you who their pet is and what's going on, but get a pet. They keep us all grounded. So that's just another little tidbit of advice while we're working from home. And when you're doing that workday planning and reflection, I would encourage you specifically to think about what skills you need to develop. What do you need to know? We don't usually have the presence of mind to think about that. We think about, the job we need to get done, but we don't always think about what else do we need to know? What else can we learn? What other learning would be helpful to us? And as we move to thinking about that, we can talk a little bit about the Masters of Science in Management and some of the really neat aspects of it and the insight and the flexibility and so forth. Kim, do you want to talk some about that? Do you want me to start? How would you like to do that?
Yeah. So just a quick point about the planning and reflection. I saw that meme earlier in the pandemic that was like, why did I even buy a 2020 planner? And as someone who also loves to plan, we always in our meetings show off our planners and our little notebooks. I have to say, that consistency of being able to plan out a week, in knowing that it's going to change, but still planning out a week, and then going back and taking a minute to reflect has really what's been getting me through this. It's those little things that, those moments of gratitude or those little memories that would only happen during this time that it's just made the difference. So I love the planning aspect of it. And just like you said, it's a really good place to set down some goals too. I love setting goals at a 30, 60, and 90 day, that sounds really ambitious. More like 60, 90, 1 year day. And then just adding to my list of how am I getting there? What am I going to do to get there? And what people do I need in my life to help me get there? So I love it. I completely agree with it. And it's the only way to fly at this point. And I look forward to buying my 2021 planner, even though we don't know if we're going to still be inside. So
I love it. We'll figure out the best. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. So our Master of Science in Management is it's the newest master's degree that we offer at Ohio University, and it is so interesting because it really takes that personalization of all the skills that you want to learn and it rolls it into a degree so that you can get what you want out of it. That is so different than any traditional MBA where it's you're going to learn 6 business courses and do some accounting as well. And while that's really great, those are good for generalists. What I really love about the MSM, as we call it internally, the Master of Science in Management, is the fact that we hyper-focus on leadership, which is the core of any industry that you want to get ahead in. But then you can customize it as well to your interests. And we're always expanding what those interests can be, but it's almost perfect for this COVID time because of its flexibility. And going back to, setting goals, just because this year might be a loss, it doesn't necessarily mean that you personally are stuck in a career. Yeah, it might not be great to move or shift careers right now, but you can still do things to make sure that you're getting ahead and standing out and beefing up that resume so that when those jobs come back or when your leader is ready to, boxes open and you're able to make some moves, you're ready and you stand out. And that's what I really love about this, is that it really truly sets you up for success with not too much, we're stuck inside, but it's not too much like, oh my gosh, I have to go to class today. That's great. And it's 100% online. So again, we're just going to spend some more time on the computer, but you take classes one at a time too. So you don't have to worry about learning a lot of material while maintaining your full-time job. You're taking one class at a time in a 7-week increment. So you're still getting the 2 courses per semester or per semester. And then you just keep going and you keep on stacking things on, and we get to have wonderful professors and faculty that we speak to and learn so much about this area of expertise. So right here on the screen are just some highlights of the program. Again, you can use that question and answer box. Amy and I are here, but it's really interesting. And I know that you, Amy, this is yours. You built this. You built this for us.
I'm really excited about it. I love it. And it was a whole team, I got to lead it, but it was really a whole team of us that built it. And we are just here for you in different ways. We have people in such different areas of management and leadership. And, we just launched the program, and our students are saying they can't believe the depth of the relationships that they have with faculty. And it really is, the knowledge, right? I mean, that's what we do, is we study content and we have knowledge. But in addition to that, you get a mentor, somebody to kind of help you through that transition to, like Kim said, whatever you want to learn about. So this year is meaningful and valuable for you.
Yes, so I just switched over to the next slide just so that we can talk a little bit about the what. I know I was very vague on the last slide, but the way this degree stacks up is everybody, no matter who you are, takes the management and leadership coursework. So that's 3 courses, and then it bookends with the capstone coursework as well. But in between there, you see that we can choose from 2 certificates in any one of these specialization areas. And if you don't see a certificate in the middle here that you might be interested in, don't worry, it's constantly changing. We're always adding new certificates that stack in there. Or even, we actually also, and Amy, or Dr. Taylor-Bianco, also teaches in our certificate program as well. So if you're not ready to commit to the full master's degree, you can start off with a certificate and then work your way up into the Master's in Science and Management. So I love how flexible it is, and it's just, I already see 3 of these certificates that I have on my list to take. I am currently enrolled in a master's degree program. It's a challenge, but it's a good challenge. Going back and talking about those constants, being able to know, okay, I have to do my coursework, I have to do my readings on certain days and get my writing out, and log into Blackboard and get my discussion post done. Keeping that constant, I am still in school. even though there is a pandemic. I'm still making positive changes in my life, even though there is a pandemic. So it's like, I don't know. It's just, sounds maybe I'm just a nerd who likes planners and coursework, but I think that this is the constant that we were talking about earlier.
I think absolutely it makes so much sense, and then you have like your cohort, you have your work folks that that you work with, and you have those relationships, and then you also have like your school folks. So it becomes in a way a sort of downtime goal pursuit and work with those people. I know that I really look forward to, and again, maybe that's geeky, but I would say that my students look forward to it too, and it's not because of me, but it's because of each other. They look forward to that literally one night a week when we log on to say, hey, how are you doing? A lot of, for most of these classes, there's a lot of asynchronous work so that you're not stuck online all the time with times that you can't make it or anything like that. But we have a night a week in my class that we log on, and, for the most part, people are there, and, we have a check-in about people's week and, and discuss the content and so forth. And it's something that I've come to, like, really look forward to, this other group of people, to see how they're learning and growing and hear about their different industries and their different background. And some folks are, right out of school, and other folks have a lot of years of experience. So it's, I don't know, it's just kind of a neat, almost random, mixing of people that all, in my case, want to learn about, management and leadership. So it's really fun. In addition to being, I think, useful, it's really fun.
Yeah, it's so interesting how you can connect with an online classroom. Like, I feel sometimes more connected to my fellow students, like my fellow cohort of students, than I do with my coworkers right now. And maybe it's because we're all in that mindset, we're all learning the same material at the same time. But I also really like you said, hearing their different perspectives, whether it be about, what someone is dealing with at work and how the coursework kind of goes along with it. I know we do a lot of case-based work, like here's the scenario type of situation, but it's really interesting getting that perspective but also knowing that these are people who are also going through the same things that I am. I just feel, but they're also like not involved in my day-to-day, so maybe that's why they connect better. It's like there's enough distance, but there's also enough connection that it feels good.
Yeah, that perfect combination where you can try new things and ask questions that you may not want to ask at work, but you really want to learn about. And yeah, maybe that's the perfect combination. But we really hope some of you will be interested in learning more about this. We've got fun things in addition to the classes. Like, for example, this Friday we're having a panel for of kind of experts just to come and speak, where, people who are enrolled in the program can drop in and hear, what they have to say on a particular topic. So there's even, fun additional learning in addition to the classes. So.
Wow, that's awesome. And it's all free and all included.
Exactly.
So thank you guys for joining us. And actually, I just found out that if anyone is truly interested in joining us for our spring 2021 cohort, we are actually doing a application fee waiver for you guys who just kind of hung out with us for an hour and talked about it. So if you're interested in applying, I'm going to pop the fee waiver code into the group chat there. So that way, we do require a $50 application fee, but with this code, you don't have to pay that. And all you have to do is, during your application, there's a little box that says for administrative use only. You'll pop this code in there, and then you don't have to actually pay it. It'll be just a free application. Oh, there's a question. Hi, Pamela. And Pamela works on the international projects team. Oh, and she was talking about trust. So she says, we build trust by understanding our roles within the team and partnering to resolve open items and responding to requests immediately or within 24 hours. Ooh, that's interesting because I
Wow.
absolutely agree. I hate having to wait for an answer. I think that part of trust is at least responding to say, hey, I'm a little bit busy right now, but I am acknowledging you and I will get you an answer as soon as possible. Would you agree?
That absolutely makes so much sense to me. Just a quick, I'm on the other end. I got it. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much. But yeah, and if you have any other questions, I'll be hanging out here in the group chat for a little bit longer. But also, if you forget this code or you have questions about the application, feel free to take down our email and our phone number here. I know Dr. Taylor-Bianco always is willing to meet with our potential students as well. So feel free to email us and then we'll get you guys connected, or she'll call you. She'll even text you in the middle of the night. No, I'm kidding. We're that connected. We're talking about work-life balance and boundaries, Cam. Let it go.
Yes, I have to set that boundary, Cam.
Oh, I'll send you a pizza. It'll be fine. No, I'm kidding. But thank you all so much for joining us today. And be on the lookout for our emails. Be on the lookout for any other future topics that are coming your way. So thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.